Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of this Spider-Man sketch cover. In the previous video, you saw me draw this image and now I'm going to color it for you. Now you may have noticed from the last video that I've gone in and added a lot more detail to the buildings and really fixed the architecture. I just couldn't leave well enough alone. I like adding detail sometimes, I just can't help myself. So what I'm doing here is I'm laying down just the gray tones for the building. I'm starting with a light color in the far background and getting progressively darker as I move forward. That adds a bit of depth of field. And you'll also notice that I'm not inking this before I'm laying down the tones. I've decided on this particular one just to put down the color over the pencils and then I'll add the black afterwards. So you see here I'm putting in some blue. I'm going really simple for the sky and just roughing in the blue color and leaving a white negative space just to suggest some clouds, and that kind of frames the Spider-Man figure. And I'm going in and laying it down the red of his costume, and I'm starting with a base red and I'm leaving some spots blank just as white highlights. And I'm going to highlight that left side, or our left side of his figure, to keep it consistent with what I did on the buildings. You'll see on the buildings I left the left side of the buildings white, and so I'm going to keep that light source consistent, and so I'm going to put the highlights on coming from that same side. And now that I've finished laying down the red base tone, I go in with a darker red and just kind of color in some of the shadow work. I'll supplement that with black shadows later. Probably not so much on the red. I'll probably add more of the black shadows on the blue part when I get to it. And right there my red marker dripped all over the artwork, so I had to take a tissue and clean it up, and you can see it kind of made a mark, so I'll need to fix that with whiteout later on. Here I started with the blue, and I'm using the same process with the blue as I did with the red. I'm going to lay down a base blue color and then come in with darker blue shadow areas. And I'm using 2 to 3 levels of color here. Really, I'm just keeping it simple. I'm not doing it overly rendered. So I'm just have a light blue and a dark blue and maybe a third color blue. I'm not sure. Here I'm attempting to do the contour with the Copic marker brush tip. I've never tried inking with the Copic marker brush tip before, so this is my first attempt. It works pretty well. I still prefer doing the traditional ink brush and crow quill pen nib, but this seems to be working pretty good. And now I'm switching to the Micron pen so I can do some finer line details that I wasn't able to get with the Copic brush tip. Inking around his fingers and hand and arm in the background there. Detailing the Spider-Man on his chest and outlining the eye lenses. And putting in some line work. There we go, I'm doing the web line. Kind of add that in the background there. And adding in a few details of the musculature. And now I'm going into the background with the Micron pens and I'm starting to ink all those detail lines on the architecture of the buildings in the background there. Now, the reason I didn't do this earlier or before I put down the color was because the Microns tend to bleed sometimes when I ink it first and then do the markers over it. So by laying my base colors down first and then going in afterwards with the ink lines. That just helps keep everything clean. One thing you might notice that I'm doing here is I'm using a very fine line micron for the buildings far away in the background. And as I move forward towards the viewer, I'm switching to slightly thicker lines. The thicker outlines around the objects in the foreground help them pop forward a little bit and helps sell that idea of depth of field, along with the shading differences in the buildings. So here I took a gray marker and did a little bit of a shading work in the windows of the building. Now I've decided to start with the web pattern on his costume. Now there's a very specific formula for doing this web pattern, and I went into it in detail in the penciling video. So if you haven't seen that, I suggest you check it out. Here I'm just basically tracing over the pencil lines that I've already drawn. And now that I've finished that, I'm going in with some whiteout and a brush and just kind of putting in some highlights on the eye lenses there and some other spots, and fixing some problem areas and mistakes like I had on his foot there when the marker bled earlier. And then I went and put my signature on it because I thought it was finished, but changed my mind and decided to add a few more red shadows in the red part of his costume. And there we have it, the finished product. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. If you like this video and you'd like to see more, please subscribe to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you get notifications when I upload more videos. And down below in the comments, let me know what you want to see in the future. What characters you want to see me draw and other sketch covers that I should do next. So, thanks for watching, everybody.